Hey everybody, it is Saturday, January 16th. This is the third time I'm attempting this, but it is time for my sketchbook review. I got the door securely closed this time. No cats should be popping in. Nobody should be texting me. Nobody should be bothering me. So let's just go ahead and hurry up and get this done so I can get on with my life. Alright, so I had quite a few failures this week, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about that. Switching mediums is a very difficult thing, my children, and I'm forcing myself to do it. Unfortunately, I'm just like, the type of things that I'm aiming for have taken people years to perfect, and I'm sitting here, it's like, if I don't get it in the first few times, I want to quit. I'm very childish like that. So, yeah. Anyway, so, example one, gouache. I was trying to do the grisaille method and do an underpainting and then an overpainting with color to kind of give it a Victorian sort of old-timey photo look. And while the underpainting turned out really, really well, like there's some parts like the layering here that turned out very nice. The problem is one, I should have taped it down. Two, I'm just inexperienced. I don't know how to use the paints correctly. 3, I don't have proper brushes. I just have like cheap Walmart brushes. And 4, well, do I even need a 4? Those are like every major mistake that watercolor people can use or gouache people can use, I've just named off as like bad brushes, no experience, I have no idea of, and Aaron's taking a shower, so of course you guys are unfortunately going to have to hear that in the background. Oh boy. But all those factors kind of played into a failed painting altogether, which is very disheartening, but I was okay with it. I was like, well, I kind of knew I was going to fail going into that. But then I tried watercolor because I got my koi watercolors in. Now, I have to make it clear that I don't do watercolors either, and that's one of the biggest problems, is I just have absolutely no experience, and I'm jumping into this thinking, oh, well, I'll figure it out and it'll be awesome, but that's not necessarily true. I have been trained in watercolors. I took classes in college, but we're talking, that was almost 10 years ago now, and I have absolutely no, it was 10 years ago now that I think about it. I graduated almost 10 years ago. At the end of this year will have been 10 years. I have not used watercolor in a very long time, and unfortunately, I haven't had time to practice. I've used it off and on, but just for like little things like background colors and whatnot. And then I typically go over them with like colored pencil or something, so whatever. But yeah, and it's very disappointing. But what I'm hoping is that like Joy-san or someone puts up a tutorial more so for watercolors for illustration, because a lot of the tutorials I'm seeing are for things like painting flowers. It's like, I'm not painting flowers, guys. I actually could paint the flowers. I'd have an easier time painting the flowers because I do understand color theory. I just don't understand how to apply it towards cartoon characters, which you would think is easy, but it's not, because it's actually very difficult, because you don't want to try and make your cartoons look realistic, and you don't want to give them those realistic qualities. You want to make them look like cartoons. That's my goal anyways. I want my cartoons to be unquestionably cartoony. For a reason. Cartoons are cartoons, fine artists, and I'm not saying it's not fine art, don't even jump on my back about that crap. There's a specific style I'm going for, I'm trying to achieve, and realistic painting is not going to get me there. So, yes, so I was trying this, and I think that just with, I tried it once, and then I set everything aside because I had other videos to do, and I didn't get a chance to sort of redeem myself. I think that if I had made multiple copies of this and done it a few times, I would have gotten there. Because I was starting to get there towards the end. It's just I needed to keep going, and unfortunately I could not. So those have been a couple failures this week that really kind of set me back and made me feel just bad about my art in general. I also did a collaboration video. I was 2 days into it, and I was looking at it and I was like, this is crap. I can't give this to somebody as a collaboration video. It's just straight up crap. So I tossed that out and I started all over again, and I'm still not happy with the final product, but it's much better than what I would have given. And it's kind of a learning process because I'm still stuck in that stage where I'm trying not to draw anime-esque. It was a human thing too, and that's part of the problem. Is I'm trying not to draw anime-esque styles anymore, but it's my default. It's the one I'm most comfortable with, and I was like, well, I need to do something, and I didn't want to do like super crappy. So I think that's what's been holding me back from doing collaborations, is that if it's my art, I tend to do better. It's more free, it's more loose, it's more organic, and it feels better. But when I'm doing someone else's characters, I never feel like I'm doing a good enough job. I feel like I'm messing it all up, and I feel bad. And then I don't want to do it anymore because I don't like that feeling. I don't like feeling like I'm failing somebody's expectations. So whatever, but I'm still going to do the collab video. I think it's going to come out sometime next week. I might have to redo the voiceover on it because at the time I was doing it, everybody was home, there's background noise, and I'm just not happy with it. So, and I'm pretty sure I say one or two or a million stupid things throughout the entire thing, so I have to go through and fix it. But anyway, those 3 major failures, and I was still working on the collaboration video up until like the day before yesterday. So I hadn't done much sketching, and I know I felt bad about that because I was looking at my sketchbooks last night and I was like, well, let's go do my sketchbook video, and I had like 3 sketches. I was like, oh, I can't do a sketchbook review with only 3 sketches. So I forced myself to sit down last night and start drawing, which again is never a good idea because it makes you feel worse unless you know how to pull yourself out of it. So I did end up pulling myself out of it. In a way I don't necessarily like, but it's one that works for me. So what we're going to start with is this smaller one because it's just easier, and then I'll move back to my big one. This was actually an old sketch I just never kind of told you guys about. So I was very blocked. I had no idea what to draw. I'd gone through all those failures throughout the week with coloring mediums, and I was just like, you know, let's just draw heads. Because that's what I fall back to when things get rough, is I just draw heads. Lady heads, because it's the easiest for me. You don't have to worry about proportion necessarily. I mean, you do. Heads have proportion, but it's not like you're trying to make sure that the head is in the right proportion with the body or anything like that. So I just kind of fell back to drawing heads and faces and eyes, and I left it at that. And then ultimately I moved straight into this picture, which I think I'm using for my next 3 marker challenge. The cauldron won't be in there. I'm going to get rid of that, but the lady will be in there at least from here up. She'll be in there. So that will probably be my next 3 marker challenge. I really like how this turned out, but I feel like her face is still just a little bit too flat. Like I need to round it out just a little bit more, but we'll mess with that in time. So more heads just to kind of get the feel. Drawing human heads is fine for me. I don't mind it. Part of me is like, everybody draws human heads, everybody draws Disney style, everybody does this, everybody does that, and I'm constantly beating myself up about the fact that I feel like I need to stand out and be different from everybody else. But the problem is I tend to only do good when I'm doing what other people have done or have been doing. It's the same with like my mouse work. It's like I did start doing mouse work. I won't lie. I did start doing mouse work well before anybody I knew was not necessarily doing it, but before I knew anybody who was doing it. The problem is I wasn't confident in it, so I wasn't showing anybody that stuff. I was like, this is crap. What am I doing? But I was doing it. And then I found the creator that Harp said, well, she found me, I should say. Well, I think I fell into one of her live streams. No, I think someone pulled me in. God, I can't remember. It was so long ago. Regardless, I saw somebody else's technique and I enjoyed it because it meshed so well with the current technique I was using. I just had to tweak a few things. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to take somebody else's style at all because I have my own. I should be using my own. So I'm sitting here and I'm still struggling with trying to figure out how I can integrate my style into a style that I've come to respect and really enjoy. And artists do borrow from each other, but I don't want to be an artist known for borrowing, if that makes any sense. I know I've already been accused by people of, oh, well, you're making that character look too much like this character. It's like, no, I'm not. Are you blind? Are you high? Are you on crack? All of which are probably yes answers. Ha 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 ha. No, I'm joking. I honestly would never say that. I think people are just overly sensitive. But I clearly, what I did when in developing most of my characters is I actually pulled up pictures of mice. Like Cherry, for example. Cherry's the one who I've been accused of making look like someone else's character. I picked out a picture of a field mouse. A very plain looking wheat field mouse. And I literally color picked from that picture and followed the same pattern that was on the mouse on the anatomical human body that I had given her. That's how she came to be. The hairstyle, that's something I came up with. Side braids, whatever. People wear side braids, big deal. Other than that, I had no other reference for her. Other than, you know, just me just drawing what I draw. But somehow it looks like someone else's character. So whatever. Whatever. Anyway, so back to this. I drew heads. That's all I could say. I'm very happy with this. I was so happy with it. I snapped a picture and put it on Instagram and Tumblr. And I was drawing a bat head. I'm trying to change the proportions of my faces so I can have more, like all my guys have same face syndrome. A lot of my girls do too. So I'm trying to change that stuff up a bit without changing it up too much because I do like what I do. But when I start to make longer faces, like I make mistakes like forgetting to put chins because, I don't know, I'm silly. I know if I just move this mouth up, it would look a lot better, but I was like, why do guy faces have to be so... Well, my camera ran out of room. That was fantastic. I need to pull some videos off of this thing before next week, I guess. But anyway, so we were done with that sketchbook anyway. We'll just hop into this one real quick and then whatever. This I had drawn up before I ran into my issues with kind of having my little art block. Was I had this idea for Cherry was because she hangs out with pirates, she ends up getting kidnapped by like other pirates and tied up, and like of course they're gonna tie her up. She's a freaking psychopath. She's probably over there like stabbing people and like, you better tie her up before she kills everybody. But while she's tied up, she's waiting, not necessarily waiting to be saved, she's just kind of chilling. And eventually, like, Captain Daryl, or whatever, Daryl, whatever. I'm just going to call him Daryl. Captain Daryl ends up coming to save her. Not save her. Probably more like they took something else, and that's what he's coming to get back, and she just happens to be there. And I had her kind of teasing him of saying, oh, come to save me, El Capitan. And he's like, nope, right where you are. But I got into thinking it even more, so... is that this is more of a memory, and then I kind of tossed her over here because there's like a whole string of events that end up happening. The way Cherry is designed is she's like almost an exaggeration of a young adult's idea that she's completely invulnerable, and a lot of young adults feel that way. It's like if you ever studied psychology, late teens, early adults, we see it in healthcare all the time, especially in males, but in females as well. That's where you see unplanned pregnancies a lot, is because they think that they're invincible. Or you see guys coming in hurt because they did something ridiculous, is because they think that they're invincible. So that's a very common mindset for people between the ages of like 16 and 25. And around the 25 age is where they kind of get pushed into thinking, you know, maybe I am vulnerable. You start to see that there's consequences to actions. Anyway, she's the same way. There's a string of events that end up happening, and she kind of tones it down quite a bit, and it does involve Captain Daryl. The problem is like I'm just waiting for people to be like feminists or whatever you want to call them. Not necessarily feminists, just idiots, because I know plenty of feminists who would enjoy the story. Would be all, oh, she changed for a guy. And it's like, no, she's changing because something happened to the only friend she's ever had who happens to be a guy. Because she's got plenty of guy friends. She doesn't mesh very well with females because of the mindset of your atypical female. That's just not who she is. Anyway, something ends up happening with him, and it does kind of tone her down. She starts acting in a way that's a little bit more socially appropriate. I believe she gets... I haven't had it really planned out, and like none of it's canon, but like at some point she does settle down. I think she does end up having a kid. She's gonna have to if she's Piper's ancestor. She's gonna have to procreate somehow. But I think that that's all I've got planned out for her, and that's like way down the line. That's like, I don't know, way down that line. I mean, she still looks good, but point being is like, people are gonna know what had an effect on her, and it's, take it or leave it. That's not to mean, that's not to say that she isn't gonna snap and still get a little psychopathic every now and then, because I think that that's something she is always going to do. That's something she's always going to have. She's going to end up having periods of restlessness, and she is still going to default back into violent tendencies because that's just the way she was developed, but she tones it down. She's not like trying to punch out every guy in the bar. She's only trying to punch out the really obnoxious ones. Alright, and then I started drawing some more Cherry over here. I was trying to experiment with angles, but then like the angle of the face didn't match the angle of the body. I'm like, what are you doing? So I abandoned it. And then I did a picture of Lydia with a 2-headed puppy because Militia has a 3-headed dog named Pringles, which is awesome. And the dog ends up having puppies at some point. I don't know if Pringles is a he or a she. I think it's a he. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter. And at one point, Militia's creator had put up a little poster about, this was back in like the MySpace days. She was showing me old stuff, old roleplay stuff. And she had a picture on there of the different types of puppies she had created for adoption. And one of them was called Mac and Cheese, and it was a little 2-headed puppy. I was like, yes, yes. So yes. So many yeses. So I drew a picture of Lydia with Mac and Cheese because it's so cute. And Lydia's so cute. I miss drawing her. I need to do it more. I was a little bit art blocked, so I asked in a chat what I should draw, and Lily was like, draw me! So I drew her and her little scarf with a book. And then in a role play I've got going with Scarlett right now, she was told to wear something fun, so I got online, of course. That's what I always do. And I like to know what she's wearing when she's walking into situations. And I picked out this little number for her to be wearing, and yeah. This is supposed to be like a slouch front, and it's meant to barely cover her. That's the whole point of the dress, because she is what she is. But yeah, I didn't feel like having to really explain the dress, but you know, people are gonna wonder. But I still think it looks good on her, so whatever. Everything looks good on Scarlett. And then I was drawing some pictures of Gadget, and then I realized, like, I was like, they look good, it's just, it doesn't look right. But I realized what it is Gadget's actually only about 2.5 heads tall, so her head is, like, massive compared to her body. And I had not drawn her that way, and that's part of why it looks a little bit off. So I can adjust that, and I plan to adjust that, because what I ultimately think I'm going to do is turn these into pre-mades for sale, just to try and, you know, get some money going. So I'm going to work on that probably later on next week. Let's see how that turns out. I'm probably just gonna scan them and enlarge the head in Photoshop and then shrink the body a little bit. This is Lily's OC Oz. I'm just going to call him Oz because I cannot pronounce his full name. I just call him Nega Oz, and then I shortened it to Naz at some point. But this is the Nega version of that character. He's Quetzal? I can't say the name. But I think of Quetzalcoatl whenever I think of it, so think of him, so I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Anyway, so it's like this really pretty green, blue, red bird. Very small bird, actually, and I actually gave him a very large beak because he's actually supposed to have a very small beak because they actually anatomically have small beaks. But whatever, because I'm not going to change it now. But he's like this very dapper, sort of calculating, not necessarily evil, but controlling sort of person. But I was just kind of sketching him out, and then I drew a picture of him with Nega Piper because we did a role play real quick where she met him, and he wasn't actually touching her, like there was no touchy, but ultimately they would probably end up being pretty on pretty good terms. It's hard to explain. Like, he would dote on her, but it wouldn't go past anything like just parental sorts of touches, like hugs and fussing over hair, which is what he's doing in the picture. Alright, so anyway, so I drew a picture of Cherry macking on some bat dude, because that's what she does. You know, and I never draw the wings, but it's because I don't like hiding the bodies I draw. Why do bats gotta have wings? My God. It's so cool that they can fly, though. Whatever. But yeah, just Cherry macking on some dude. And then I was talking with the creator of Harp and Stars, and, or not the creator, but the artist for Harp and Stars, because it's 3 people who created it, I believe. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. Semantics. And I was kind of going on about how, oh, you know, what if they didn't have to deal with all this? What if they were just thieves? Because Lestren and Piper, that's actually how they meet, is through their scavenging. I guess you could call it thieves, but it's just through scavenging. And I was like, if they just had stayed the way that they were and things like that, would be really cool. And then I got to thinking, well, I think she mentioned something like, oh, they'd be like a Bonnie and Clyde sort of couple. And I got to thinking about, oh, and they can run around with like little Tommy guns. And then she's like, yeah, and their getaways like in this little wind-up car. And like, just went off. It was ridiculous. But so what ended up happening is I drew Lestren and Piper as Bonnie and Clyde. And it was really cute. And I based it off of a picture of Bonnie and Clyde. And it looked like he was holding her up, but I couldn't figure out how he was doing it because you can't see his other hand. But somehow he's managing to do it. So I'm just leaving it at that. I basically not copied, I referenced the picture, but yeah, whatever. And then more Piper, because I was actually in a pretty sour mood because my drawing, it was around, well, I'd already figured out I hadn't drawn enough, and it was getting super late, and I knew I was going to have to stay up super late to keep drawing because I wanted you guys to actually have something to see. And I don't understand what Aaron is doing out there to make so much freaking noise, or why it's coming through the room so easily, but whatever. Alright, grape. But so I kind of defaulted to doing some poses with Piper. She's supposed to be wet in this one, and I don't know, it just ended up being a cute pose, so I left it alone. She's cooking in this one and kind of singing, because she does do a lot of singing when she's by herself a lot. She lives alone, so I figure she probably sings to pass the time. And then this is just kind of like a cute little chibi Piper. This is actually closer to the anatomical body shape that Gadget is supposed to have. So, yeah. And then another cute little tiny Piper. And then I was drawing more Cherry, and I got to thinking about what would she look like in Victorian clothing, because I do belong to a couple Victorian anthro mouse groups on DeviantArt. Highly inspired by like the Great Mouse Detective and stuff. Really, I just follow it to follow the art because I've met quite a few awesome artists through there. Beagle Babe included. Haha, got you plugged in, honey. Yeah, so I decided to toss some Victorian garb on Cherry. And this one turned out like so well. Like, I finished it and I was looking at it and I didn't like it. And then I took a picture of it and tossed it up on Instagram anyway, just to kind of show people that I am still working, I am still sketching. But after looking at it on my phone, I was like, maybe it's just the angle that I'm physically looking at it, but it looks really, really good. So I think I'm going to end up finishing this one. I'm going to transfer it over to a piece of paper. At the very least, I want to put it in inks, because I think it'd be a very strong piece in inks, just because there's a really good balance between the black and the white. And then, of course, you know, if I'm going to draw her in full on, look at, I'm getting all dirty from touching everything. If I'm going to draw her in full-blown Victorian garb like this, I may as well draw her in full-blown Victorian underwears, because it was all like pantaloons and things like that. But yeah, she's still going to be a psychopath. I don't even know what she would be doing. She's looking at a clock here, so she probably has like some important meeting she needs to be to. But in this image, she clearly is not going to a meeting, but she is smoking a cigarette. And yes, you guys, and some people do get really upset when I draw my characters smoking, but if it's historically appropriate, they will be smoking, they will be doing drugs. That is just the way it is. Because to ignore the fact that those were massive social things happening in history at the time, is ridiculous. Women smoked in the Victorian ages, and it's not because it was disgusting, it was because it was just socially acceptable. Men did too. If it was a dude smoking, most people wouldn't even question it, but if I draw a girl smoking, I get like comment after comment of people complaining. It's like, why would you have her smoke? That's such a bad example. It's like, it's a cartoon mouse who is a psychopath and murders people. She's not a good example to begin with, but it's still a cartoon mouse. You should not be basing yourself or your life or your beliefs off of a cartoon mouse. So please, don't do that, kids. Go find like a good example. You would hope that your parents would be the good example, but I realize that in this day and age, it's probably the worst thing in the world to say because they probably don't have examples like that at home. But point being is if it's socially acceptable at the time, I do draw my characters smoking and partaking. It's not very often though, because traditionally Cherry comes from like way back in the day, and I'm sure that there's other stuff she drinks mead and beer and things like that in those pictures. I haven't. Well, yeah, I did have one picture of her drinking with Captain Darryl, but other than that, but in the Victorian time, yeah, she does smoke. So if I'm going to put her in the era, she's going to partake in all of the fancy fun stuffs. But yeah, anyway, so. And I did want to have her meet up with, I do want to have one day, like, a little role play if I can find a way of her and Margot to meet. And Margot's from a Victorian era, because, again, based on Great Mouse Detective time, it would just be crazy. Her and the shrew, it'd be crazy. I love the way the hat turned out, by the way. I love, like, just this little rim right here, that detail I got, just, but getting it to fit around the ears was such a pain in the butt. And I think this is the last two, yep. Cherry with her hair down. Now, because she always has her hair in a braid, and it's always a thick braid, and I do that on purpose. When you braid thin hair, it's a thin braid. If it's a thick braid, that means that they have a ton of very thick, massive hair. So when her hair is actually down, it's very wavy, and there's a lot of it. So, yeah. That's what I drew. And it's great. And then I had enjoyed drawing her in Victorian garb so much I felt the need to do it again because I was tired and I kind of wanted to go sleep, but I wanted to get one more sketch in. I wanted to fill the page. So I drew her again, just kind of doing that. A lip bite. I should fix that. Actually, her lip is way too big. And pulling off one of her gloves because she's probably about to go punch somebody in the face and she doesn't want to get blood on her nice silky gloves. So she's going to pull it off and go hit him barehanded. I love her. This one turned out really nice too, so I'm very happy with it. But alright, interruptions aside and multiple attempts of doing our recordings aside, I think we're done. And that's everything for this week. If you guys liked what you saw, feel free to like, subscribe, comment below. Try to refrain from commenting, asking me like how much I paid for anything. You guys... Y'all got Google. Y'all can get on YouTube. You guys can look this stuff up. But as far as the koi watercolors, I got those for free because I had a gift card. So there you go. But yeah, feel free to comment below. I'm looking into doing some more videos that you guys have suggested. But I'm going, and it bears repeating because people keep saying it. I'm not going to do anatomy videos. It's not going to happen. There's so many of them on YouTube. People have done entire series on nothing but anatomical drawing of people, places, things, objects, whatever. I'm not going to do it. The way I draw is not correct anyway, so I'm not the person to take that kind of advice from. Look elsewhere, go get books, take a class. That's the only way you're going to learn that and getting out and drawing. And I'm not trying to be mean, it's just I get so many requests for how do I draw or how do I draw anatomy. It's like, you guys are asking the wrong person. I've shown you how to draw duck faces. That's about as anatomical as I'm going to get. And that's because those are cartoon structures, which is completely different than a human structure. But I still pulled it back to a human structure for the explanation. So, eye tutorials, I am considering that because that's a little bit different how I draw my eyes. I don't know about too many more challenges. I am going to redo my 3-marker challenge. I get at least 2 comments a day about how I messed this one up. It's like, yes, I know I messed it up, guys. I got it. So I am going to be redoing that relatively soon. I got the collaboration video that I wanted to do out of the way. So, and I'm also looking for a job at the current current time. I'm even applying in things that aren't nursing related because I kind of just need to get a job. I need to be doing something, because I think part of the reason why I'm starting to struggle with art is because I have too much time to work on it, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so that's it for the week, and I will see you guys in next week's sketchbook review.